All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Jordan Whalen, who actually is also in a equally sunny San Diego. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm good. How are you? Am I your first fellow San Diego guest?
No. I've had a few others.
Uh,
But you're the first
yeah.
one this year. How about that?
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. And Jordan's the founder of Grey Smoke Media, and he has a background in TV and radio as a producer and a publicist. Has managed over 3 billion in class action claims communications. Spent a decade mastering media buying, managing over 50 million in spend. And then under your leadership, Grey Smoke Media helped Diamond and Diamond lawyers grow from a small practice to Canada's top injury and real estate law firm. Before you rebranded Grey Smoke Media as a legal marketing agency, you worked with publicly traded pharmaceutical companies, Pan Am Gaines, Brookfield Management, Asset Management, Intact Financial Corporation, and crypto powerhouses such as CoinSquare. So what we're going to talk about today is all things marketing related. An interesting background, Jordan. Just briefly, how that transition into being a marketing agency. I mean, how did that come about?
It's a very circuitous journey to get where I am today. I started in radio and TV production, getting up at 3 a.m. to do the morning show on Canada's largest talk station. I'm a Canadian who spent 3 decades there, and taught myself how to run a radio show, and then moved into television production, and then moved into newspaper writing. And over time, over a period of about 3 to 4 years, I really understood the world of earned media. We talk
Mhm,
about buying, advertising, which is,
mhm,
uncomfortable in people's faces. But
mhm,
earned media is really overlooked by a lot of people, the way that you can leverage these major media corporations still today. And you can sort of hijack, piggyback off their credibility and stuff like that. And so I sort of became a media expert. I was on television, radio, and people then started to hire me as their publicist. At the same time, I started Grey Smoke Media. My very first client was a law firm called Diamond and Diamond. They were probably less than 20 people. I think today we're about 550.
uh,
And they said, "Can you do our PR?" I said, "No problem." And then my second client was the mayor of Toronto, and then a couple other big powerhouse clients at the same time. And as Diamond and Diamond grew, then instead of hiring 4 or 5 agencies, they just sort of said, "Hey, you're doing a great job with our PR. Can you teach yourself these other things?" So I taught myself SEO, digital marketing, content, and media buying. And so for between them and many other clients, I've managed about $50 million in ad spend with about 150 different publishers across North America. And
mhm.
so now today, Grey Smoke Media is sort of this Swiss Army knife marketing agency where clients come to us and say, "Hey, I have a marketing problem. I want to get to that final echelon. How do I get there?" And then a year ago, I rebranded it just for lawyers, although we do take on people I believe in, that I connect with on a personal level, spiritual level, that I want to help out. I've done crypto companies. It's sort of the same marketing mix
Mhm.
that I can apply for people, but anything creative. If you come to me and you have half the budget of your competitor, I find a way to excel ahead of them.
Right. So what has changed? I mean, as we're now in 2025, from when you started, like what has changed? Because we've seen obviously a lot of changes in marketing. We've seen the advent of AI. I mean, you talked about SEO. You now have to look at how do I optimize for AI, where people are using those as as alternatives to search engines. So what's changed in how you go about things?
I think what's changed on well, first I will speak to AI.
Hmm.
That's definitely changed SEO over the past 12 months. Local SEO has become extremely important. So we're still really focusing on that. But human stories in the SEO front of things are always going to win out, right? If you have a blog on your website about the time that you overcame this illness and started your $10 million company, there's nothing that AI is going to be able to replace, and people
Hmm.
will still want to connect with you on that front. So you have to kind of get a little creative. On the AI front, I think in 2025, you're going to see a lot more focus on user intent, authority, What factors more into SEO now is, are you interesting? Are you on social media? Are you famous? Do you have authoritative backlinks to your site? That's still, that part is not changing. And when we speak about SEO, it's really about connecting me to you. How do I find my business that I'm looking for? So that part is kind of changing, and it's an influx, and I don't want to kind of say exactly how it's going to turn out. In terms of other thing, what, some things haven't changed. Radio is still huge. I do a lot of radio advertising. I think the CPM on radio is one of the best. I think still radio is a great way to get a brand out. It does take about 6 months to really
Right.
get in with people's top of mind awareness. Out of home advertising is great as long as you're smart about how strategic you buy your billboards. You don't buy them for ego when you're the realtor that wants your neighbors to just see you. You buy them because they're near a certain area,
Mhm.
or if you're a personal injury lawyer, you buy them because they're near a hospital, creating that brand association. But I think what's always going to win out, and what we really work towards, is creativity. How do I
Right.
find a way to drive traffic to your site? I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter on the side. I started in June, and I'm driving right now about 25,000 hits a month to my Spotify using
Yeah.
a website that is massive and no one talks about, and I'll keep
Mhm.
that to myself in my, for now. But I taught my friend how to drive about 20,000 hits a month to his Spotify store from this
Right.
website. So creativity and hiring a company to sort of, you know, go around and come up with something that other people can is always going to win out for sure.
Yeah, because it seems to me like a lot of people think, okay, AI gives us all these shortcuts and all of this, and people are always looking for shortcuts. But it seems to me, but what you're saying is that actually, if you put the work in and you're creative and you can have outsized results that way, that there isn't really those kind of instant shortcuts that people are always kind of looking. It's like people always say, like, there's no silver bullets, but they believe every so-called silver bullet that comes along.
Yes, and they also sort of a lot of people come to me, I work with a very specific client. I don't
Mhm.
start in the infancy stages. I have a
Right.
client that's, I'm doing well, but I want to dominate my market. And I've been in business for, at least 3, 4 years. But a lot of people overvalue themselves. They think they're more interesting than they are. They think their business is more interesting than they are. And it sounds very harsh, but it's,
Mhm.
if I go to your website and I load it and I don't understand what your unique value proposition is, if your fonts, if your colors don't evoke anything in me, I don't really care. And so a lot of
Mhm.
people think, I'm Jeff Smith and I have this business and you should come work with me. And there's 25 other Jeff Smiths within the city.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they haven't put that thought into it. And you can't market something until you really understand, how do I make people feel?
Mhm. Yeah, because I mean, let's face it. I mean, commoditization is huge today. I mean, most services and businesses are commoditized to some degree, and so the differentiation has to come from something more. And I think a lot of people struggle with what that something more is.
Yeah, and one of the great things we did with Diamond and Diamond, one of my
Yeah.
greatest case studies is we really became the people's law firm. Lawyers are traditionally known as being quite arrogant and unapproachable, and we created a law firm for people that no matter who they are, they could come. We were nice, we had great customer service, and that's how we, besides, our marketing
Mhm.
acumen, we really
Sure.
did focus on the human aspect, which no AI will ever get around.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key point, and we would totally agree with you on that front. I think the human element is going to be even more important going forward because people are going to be unsure of what's real and what's not real. We've been through a period like with the pandemic and stuff where a lot of human, interaction was lost for a time. So I think while all of these tools are fantastic, I think that human element is going to become more and more important. But it has to be real and authentic, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people see through it very quickly. If you're,
Yeah.
especially with industries like personal injury law, which are notorious for being known
Mhm.
as, ambulance chasers and stuff like that. At the end of the day, when you focus on local SEO, there's a lot of opportunities to be made there. I mean, I optimized a client's local SEO page and drove another 600 grand a year to his business,
Mhm.
and you still can't get around the bad reviews. right? You
Right.
still can't run a poor business and hope that, you can get enough of your friends and family to write reviews on how great you are. At the end of the day, it always catches up to you. So you have to get to the core of, do we treat people well, and do we, have we created a good reputation for ourselves? And that just comes down to the basics.
Yeah. And also you said about being interesting, and you mentioned something about earned media, and I would agree with you. I think that's something that people do overlook a lot, because it does take some work, but I mean it means that you have to have something to contribute, that publications want to work with you.
Yeah, it's about I'm actually working with a friend's business right now. It's about the media hook, right? Distilling
Mhm.
down what you do to make it interesting. And in his particular situation, we live in a time now where people are on their phones, they're disconnected. So he's trying to solve that problem.
Mhm.
And that's what I sort of do for people with my PR background. It used to be called newsjacking, where essentially a
Sure.
headline would come out and I figure out how to insert my client in the conversation. Um, One of the problems, though, is if you do put yourself too much out there and you are the brand and you are the business, if things
Mhm.
go awry or you don't want to be in the public eye anymore, it's very difficult to walk that back. So I
Right.
really try to talk people out of building a business that's just about one man or woman, and then trying to sell that business is a little
Mhm.
difficult at times.
No, absolutely. And you're saying is, I mean, how does a business figure out what its personality really is? Because I think that's another thing too. What I see a lot today is businesses trying to adopt maybe personalities that don't suit them, and then trying to, market themselves in a way that really just doesn't sync with who they actually really are.
One of the things I still go back to is focus groups.
Hmm.
They're great. They're inexpensive. I've run several of them for clients and they're kind of fun. You sit behind the glass and
Hmm.
you play people your commercials, but it really starts on day one. Why are we doing this? And it can't just be to buy a sports car.
Hmm.
It's really, we're starting this business to make people feel X, Y, Z, and you can really just look to the entertainment business to do that great. The reason women love Beyonce is because she makes them feel a certain way. She
Hmm.
makes them feel powerful, and regardless of the music, she's tapped into something in them. And so that's what I usually ask people before we start the Facebook ads, before we start the media. What exactly are we selling? And can you sell it to me in 4 words? And that can take 6 months to figure out.
Hmm. And you mentioned there also, I mean, there's so many different, platforms and avenues that you could go. And I feel that's another trap that people often fall into, is they look at the platform first and say, oh, we need to be on X, Y, and Z, as opposed to, as you said, figuring out your message, but also figuring out, is that where your ideal target audience is?
Right. Yeah, certain platforms are gonna be for, lifestyle brands, beauty brands, stuff like
Mhm.
that. You're on TikTok, you're on Instagram. But, I have lawyers come to me and say, "I really wanna get on TikTok, and I really want," and I say, "Why?"
Yeah.
I don't wanna really personally hire a lawyer that's on TikTok every
Yeah.
day. I want the lawyer that, is, a serious person that's not trying to become a character, and that so, your home improvement businesses, stuff like that, again, sure, you can be kind of quirky and run something on there, but at the end of the day, Google is still the best local SEO. If you optimize your local SEO page, the thing about SEO that's so interesting is I always say to people, you're not really bothering people in creating something. If I'm serving an ad on your Instagram at 4 in the afternoon, you're thinking,
Hmm.
I don't know who you are, get away from me. The beauty of Google is it's inbound, right? It's the psychology of, I need this thing now. And if I know your industry is 250,000 searches, I come to you and I say, hey, let's grab 100,000 of those. I'm going to tell
Hmm.
you how we can do that. And then you work backwards, knowing your conversion rate's 2%. I can say to you, on the 200,000, we can convert 2% to leads. And of those leads, we can go backwards. And suddenly I can really show you how, the return on the investment with a company like me is 20x. And that stuff, that's why SEO to me is so great. It's like, we've got that psychology, we've got the person that's coming to you, and they're doing it right now. They're just going to your competitor's website. So let's
Hmm.
just divert the traffic to you.
Yeah, and I guess I mean, obviously, falling behind that is then you need to make sure that you capture that properly and that you react properly, and you've all the systems behind it. Because I hear often, on even on local, as you said, like local services, I'll often hear somebody say, "Oh, I saw this ad. This like sounds fantastic. I want to engage with this person," and then the ad served up, they email them, and then they don't hear anything.
Yeah, or they don't, an easy one is just install Hotjar. Hotjar will
Mhm. Yeah.
basically see how people arrive at your website, what they go
Mhm.
to. I had a client do that one time and people weren't even leaving the first page. So that's a real five alarm fire where you're
Mhm.
sort of thinking, why do people not even want to click around? What am I doing? And sometimes it's just you have a bad server and you have a bad web developer and your website is painfully slow, which is destroying your SEO and your user
Mhm.
experience to the point where I've given up after 5 seconds. And nowadays with people's attention spans getting even shorter, it's
Mhm.
amazing that people don't invest in, a proper server, a proper web developer, because most people that come to your website will never come back unless you capture them in some way. And so you
Yeah.
have to think about that as like we're all all of us are not as great as we think they are. We have to get into the mind of the buyer and the person coming to us.
Yeah, and what you say is fascinating because I mean we've used Hotjar ourselves, and it is amazing the information that it will tell you, and because I think that's the great thing about consumers is that they will often act in a way that you could never conceive if you don't actually look at it. And like you'll see, I mean, we found in places like the rage clicking on something that there was never ever a link, there's nothing to click on, and you're wondering why are they clicking there? Why are they trying to click there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you don't we all live in these silos, right? We don't
Mhm.
understand other people. We think we do. We don't
Yeah.
understand their biases and stuff like that. I had one client who was running TV ads for a business for 5 years and was wondering why they couldn't get female clients. And I watched that every single TV ad was for guys.
Right.
And I said, "If I'm a woman, I don't see myself represented.
Mhm.
We can't be what we can't see at the end of the
Yeah.
day, right?" So these are the small ways we have to get out of what we call the monkey bus, where we get into our own heads and we think we're so great and the egoic mind.
Mhm.
We have to get someone to sort of shake us, whether it's a family member or a marketing company, to say, "Whoa, this is a catastrophic mistake you're making."
Yeah, no, that is so interesting. Like I said, I mean, yeah, we're very good at kind of fooling ourselves, and but like you said, though, the tools are there today. There's people like you, and then there's the tools where you can get very granular about what the consumer or the customer is experiencing when they interact with your brand.
Yeah, and again, going back to SEO, that's why I love SEO because I can see the searches, what people are searching to get to you,
Mhm.
the indirect way they came to you, not just, tax lawyer Los Angeles. It was
Right.
the long form inquiry when they were saying looking for a female tax lawyer or
Mhm.
looking for a female that appealed to this specific niche and no one had tapped into it. And if you just look at the SEO data and the Google Trends data, you can figure out what people are interested in. And the greatest part is you can look at your competitors, and that's what we do when you come to me for SEO is I look at your competitors, I do an analysis, and I say, "Oh, well, they're stealing about 10 to 15,000 searches per month from you, and you make these small tweaks, and that traffic's now yours."
Mhm.
And there's no other kind of element in the marketing mix that operates like that. And so I still do love it to a degree. I don't know how it's going to change over the next little while, but it's extremely powerful. And I've helped build 5, $10 million businesses just on SEO.
Yeah, and like we were saying, with the growth in AI, and that people are going to start to get more and more used to putting in very detailed, prompts, right, with natural language queries. So as you said, putting in things like give me a female lawyer here who does this, who has this, and whatever other parameters, rather than those kind of shorter searches that people used to do. So you're going to need to make sure that that content is accessible.
Yeah, and then the same sort of mentality kind of extends over to your AdWords, how you run your
Yeah.
AdWords, right? Because we used to call it it's changed a bit, but long form keywords
Yeah.
that we used to use in AdWords, and there'd be you know, you were paying $25 a click for X, and then all of a sudden I found these long form keywords that were $2 and your competitor wasn't using them. You're never going to get anywhere if you and your competitor are both paying $25 a click for 5 years. You're just going to be in the sandbox with them. So these are when I say creativity around what we do and what other marketing companies do, at the end of the day, you need someone who's like, let's get creative. Even I don't care if you have less money than your competitor, I can find a way to get you more leads. But that creativity is really the key. Is really, let's drill down to how do we get out of the ways of the way that you've built the business and the way that you think and your own kind of pathway, your neural pathways at the end of the day.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a good point that you make there, especially about those, cost of keywords and that. And, some people just go in and it just becomes this ridiculous competition for a single keyword, and everybody and all everybody is doing is literally pushing up the cost for each other.
Yeah, exactly. And if you went to another avenue like a Reddit, or if you went to even a Tumblr, or things that people don't even think about, or if you started a conversation online, I always tell people, think about what we're doing right now. If I wanted to optimize this for SEO, I would just clip it. And then when people search those keywords, now YouTube and TikTok and other videos show up in the search results. So if we clip this and we tagged it properly, doing some research, boom, that's another way you get traffic. So you've got your organic results, you've got your AdWords, but then now we've got a clip of me and you talking that then might get me 5 clients. And so it all kind of, the reason I kind of built my agency the way I did is because I realized that everything was connected. If I got you a media hit, I had to then think of, how can I leverage this for your Google results on page 1? How can I leverage this for your SEO? How could I drive this specific article through the channels on Facebook so people would click it and I would piggyback off their credibility? And I really realized, working with my clients, it was kind of all one. And you couldn't go and hire 5 agencies and have a bunch of 23-year-olds trying to talk to each other. You just couldn't do that if you wanted to be serious about getting to that final echelon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, Jordan, this has been fascinating. So many fantastic insights. All of Jordan's information will be below this video. But before we go, please tell people a little bit more about Grey Smoke Media.
Yeah, so we are predominantly a legal marketing firm, but at the end of the day, we take on specific clients that we believe in. I need to work with people that I want to see succeed on a personal level. That's just something that's become really important to me over the past little while. And so if you want to reach out to us, it's greysmokemedia.com, GREY. You can book a 30-minute meeting, or you can just reach out to us to see if we're a good fit on a personal level and on a financial level. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks again, Jordan. It was really interesting. And thank you for watching and listening. I will see you all again very soon. Thank you.